We found the neighbor's panties in a dryer, and the gay couple upstairs was missing a gerbil. Very highbrow shit. The first time I was ever in a movie was because of Jim. It was 1996, and the film was called White Chicks Incorporated. Worst film ever made, must have been Taken. Jim and Artie Fletcher played two losers who went to a witch doctor, played by white comedian Jeff Parami. I played a successful celebrity comedian. I was awful. And so was everyone else. But fuck it. It was a movie, and it was my first, and it would not have happened if it weren't for Jim. The first roommate I ever had was Jim. I lived at home until I was 30. I was doing stand-up every night, but was spending all of my money on prostitutes. I finally moved out of my parents' house and in with Jim and his girlfriend. We lived in Cliffside Park, New Jersey, and I was happy to be out on my own. I didn't realize the place was a cesspool. 3 of us split a $900 a month rent, and I just assumed that all cool bachelor pads were infested with silverfish, had rainwater leaking into the living room, and black mold openly growing on the walls. It was like living inside the asshole of a wild animal. The first time I ever had a threesome with a buddy was with Jim. There was a woman I knew who was a really good egg and would have me over after her kids went to bed and blow me on the sofa. She had a thing for long hair, and one night I just brought Florentine over, figuring she'd be delighted to fillet him. She actually wound up blowing me while Jim had sex with her from behind because my penis was wilting in shame, and I knew if I tried to have sex, it would be a dismal failure. Jim, the consummate professional, maintained his erection and saved the day. The second guy I brought to see her was Rich Voss. Rich had sex with her and then walked outside to smoke like an asshole. She hated him. The first time I met Ozzy Osbourne was because of Jim. He knew a guy named Frank who worked at MTV, and Ozzy was being interviewed by some Russian host. Frank walked us backstage, and we looked in the green room, and we saw Ozzy standing there. I had no idea how to act. I was completely paralyzed. Jim played it cool and just kind of talked to people like we belonged there, and instead of following his cue, I stood in front of Ozzy's door and stared at him like Boo Radley. Ozzy walked by us, and I actually followed him to the bathroom to ask for an autograph. I didn't do photos back then. I typically just got people to sign my business card. We finally made it to the green room, and as Ozzy is signing my card, Jim grumbled, "Get a picture, get a picture." I forgot he even had his camera with him. We snapped photos of each other with Ozzy, and thus began my 20-year photo obsession. So for every celebrity who's had to throw their arm around my sloped shoulders and fake a smile, Jim is the guy to blame. The first time I ejaculated on a television set was because of Jim. Bob Levy, Jim, and myself had done a gig outside of Baltimore. All 3 of us were sharing a room. Bob, the headliner, in one bed, Jim and I in the other. Jim's generosity, once again. Neither of those guys had to let me stay in the room, and Jim certainly did not have to let me share his bed. After the gig, Jim was out sodomizing some waitress, and Bob and I are smoking cigarettes in the room. Bob suggested that we jack off on the TV so Jim could see it when he came back. I thought this was a fine idea. Bob went first. When jerking off on the television, the headliner always goes first, and then I got up to the plate. I had a hard time getting going knowing one of my comedy heroes was laying in the bed behind me, passed out with a Marlboro Light in his mouth. I forged ahead and finished. Then we waited. We waited and smoked, and finally, hours later, Jim came back in and saw the 2 loads on the television. He went, "Beautiful," and headed off to bed. I don't even know where to end this, because I love Jim so much and have spent so many of the most important moments of my life with him. There isn't enough room to write about when we waited online to meet Black Sabbath, or when we flew to LA and I farted so much the flight attendant spritzed air freshener next to Jim's seat, or about us performing at Woodstock 94 when we walked around in the huge performer tent and just giggled at the giant penises bulging out of the shorts of the African musicians, or about the time Jim talked his girlfriend and her friend into urinating on me, or the joy Jim expressed when Otto Peterson tracked dog shit into my brand new car. Unfortunately, this group of sophomoric, idiotic stories must wait to be told another day. What I can say about Jim is I absolutely would not have made it as a comedian if it were not for his friendship, and that no one can talk me off an emotional edge like Jim Florentine. He is brilliantly funny and 100% original. Jim is probably the most genuine person I've ever met and has undoubtedly contributed more to my life than I have to his. Jim Norton, October 2017.
Part 1. Awful Facebook. Chapter 1. The Education of an Awfulologist. I'm a simple man trying to live in a complicated world. Most days, all I want to do is maintain my peace of mind. But that's hard as hell when everything I consider normal has flipped on its head. All the rules have changed. Now, people broadcast their lives over the internet instead of living them. Relationships are formed and lived out in cyberspace instead of real time. Conversations are had on smartphones where anyone with a shred of social media muscle can censor and troll you if they don't like what you're saying. Let's face it, there isn't much room for a simple life anymore.